Morena, good morning, talo falava, and greetings to everyone who is able to see this. Welcome again to another edition of our Arbez live feed. We deal with real lives, real people with real results. I am Alisana Alex Talupa'a of Bethlehem, and we are Arbez. Our name is a direct reflection of who we are as a body. There is one body and many parts. Arbez is simply zebra spelled backwards, inspired by the story of the 5 loaves and 2 fish that fed the 5,000 plus, and where 12 baskets full of leftovers were collected in the end. Arbez is the A to Z of a resource-based economy. We think differently. We do things differently. We start with the end in mind. We turn the norm upside down. We work from the inside out, and we keep things simple. We are blessed and highly favored as the messenger of kingdom economics in the 21st century, where abundance abounds and where all things are possible. With us, impossible becomes I'm possible. Welcome to our world. Welcome to Arbez. And joining me today, I have the pleasure of introducing a part of our Arbez body, my very good friend, my very close friend, Will Watson. I'll just give you a little bit about Will, and then I'll pass it over to him to take us through his journey. Will Watson has achieved many things in his life. Some of the things and the achievements that I will share with you are, he's a property buying and selling over 500 houses in Auckland. He's the winner of the Property Professional of the Year 2014 and 2015. Film the latest film, the highest rated film in New Zealand. Winner of over 20 international film awards. He's a New Zealand largest film premiere in 2019 at the Civic. He's the winner of the Global Business Awards, 2019 Public Speaking TED Speaker. Talked to national and international leaders at the Parliament Theatre at the Beehive on Navigation Home's keynote address. A meeting that should have been 30 minutes became 2 hours. Will, share with us where you've come from. This is a whole lot of achievement, my friend. It's amazing, it's impressive. And you know what? I am only pleased to be able to say you are a close friend of mine. And we've journeyed in this together. I have crossed paths with you. You've put so much value in my life, and I value you as well. And today I want to share your story with my people who are following this journey as well. So we'll take it away from here. Share the beginning of your journey.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on the show. And, you know, Alex and I have been great friends for around a decade now. And, you know, it was very much a chance meeting. We met at a business mentors group. I was mentoring business people and met Alex. And from there, a relationship and friendship struck up. And then next thing, you were coming around to my house and we were kayaking, got you on the double kayak, and we went around the harbour. My house used to have a beautiful house on the Manukau Harbour, and Alex would come around and we'd jump in a double kayak and paddle right around the whole of the Manukau Harbour. And I used to take him out into the deep water and into the big swells, and we'd ride chop and swell and have a lot of fun. So yeah, we had a lot of good times together, and a lot of conversations around business. We're both interested in business and life and abundance and looking at things differently and making things work and trying new things, and a lot of curiosity for both of us. So we both sort of struck a relationship around those key sort of values. And from there, it's sort of, we've had an ongoing relationship. And I was obviously very sad that you ended up in Tauranga, because it was great to have you around more. But good to hear you. You know, I know that you're doing really well and we keep in regular contact. So Tauranga has been great for you, and I'm very pleased about that. But just to sort of touch on a few things. I mean, I did do a talk recently at Navigation Homes. They have a national housing company, and they asked me to come and talk for 30 minutes. Well, I did my 30, and I says, okay. And they said, oh, can you carry on? And suddenly it was 2 hours later, and a lot of the people missed out on having their conversation. So I ended up sort of stealing the limelight. So I'll just have to be a little bit careful not to overtalk this whole thing. But I don't know, where would you like my journey to start, Alex? What would you like me to start with? Because I've done a lot of things. I'll just quickly. So here's the trajectory of my business. I started off in Sydney with $20. Learned to do construction, made a lot of money in construction. Then I traveled around the world for a long time. Had a restaurant for a while. Was a restaurateur for a while. Then I was a street performer for 5 years, and then I left street performing and got into publishing. And started New Zealand Publishing, and then sold out of publishing and went into property development, and left property development, and then went into film. And film is my passion, although it doesn't pay a lot of bills. It pays the bills, but it's not a wealth creation thing. It's more of a hobby / love, passion. Yeah, so that's my trajectory. And I just, where would you like me to touch on things now?
Yeah. Oh well. What I would like to share is part of your journey as to where you've come from, where you're at now, and where to from here. So with saying that, where were you originally from, Will?
I'm originally from Hawke's Bay in central North Island, right on the coast actually. Well, it's the east coast of the middle of the North Island. And I grew up there and left home when I was about 17 and went to Australia, and I managed to get the airfare together and had got to Sydney and had $20 to my name. And I was, at that time in '88, the stock market had just crashed here before. There was no work in Hawke's Bay except debt collecting, and there was no work in Sydney either. But I finally managed to get a job as the wheelbarrow boy on a construction site. So that was my big breakthrough, really, is that just to get work back then was a really big thing, People take for granted that jobs, like you can just work what you want. Back then, you just didn't have a job. You were just lucky to have jobs. And I was lucky enough that I was really good barrow boy. So I got the job as the barrow boy. And then I'm always curious. So I said, well, how does the rest of the concrete job work? How do you not just push large amounts of dirt around, And I learned the whole process of concrete. And then eventually I was able to go and quote my own jobs, do my own jobs. I hooked up with a Kiwi guy. We set up a business and we got involved in construction, and we did very well. So at about age 23, I bought my first set of, bought 4 houses, and they were all outright, bought them outright. And at 23, I'd sort of come to my first retirement, and because I had $20,000 a year coming in from my rental houses. And I sort of started hitting the road. I just traveled around the world for a number of years and stuff like this. But your big break doesn't come from, you become the CEO of ANZ or something. No, it starts with you're a very good bank teller, and then you become, a very good manager of the tellers. And then you go up and up, and people sort of think, well, where's my big break? Well, your big break is starting now, being the best, fruit picker you can be, being the best wheelbarrow pusher you can be. Whatever it is you can be that the best you can.
Wow. Can you touch on a little bit about your mindset? Hearing about the $20 that you started with in Sydney, and the mindset at the time, with how you turned that into, it's really impressive. Your CV at the moment, it's very impressive. And people can look at that and go, oh, Will is successful and all of that. But, it's really important that they hear about what the mindset that actually built everything up to this very time. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So I actually read a book in 1988. I was 17 at the time, and it was called Think and Grow Rich. And when I say, when it says Think and Grow Rich, it doesn't mean Think and Grow Rich as in you're going to get, well, there we have it. See? The Bible. So there's actually 3 books that everyone should read if they haven't already. And this is what I'd suggest your readers do. And this will change their lives. One, to always have a copy of Think and Grow Rich, because every other motivational book all they're doing is they're going to Think and Grow Rich and pulling out, extrapolating whatever it is that they like, The Secret, for example, is a whole movie dedicated to manifestation. Well, that's one of the 13 chapters. in that book. So Think and Grow Rich, I read that book. Another book I read was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then the third book I recommend people do, and I didn't read this till later, but I also already understood it, was like Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that's all about taking your earned income, putting it into like assets, and those assets. Yeah, okay, good stuff. So yeah, there's Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then of course, so those I read those books. Bar Robert Kiyosaki wasn't out at that time, and the Think and Grow Rich put me in a mindset where one of the stories it talks about in the Think and Grow Rich is that a general arrived onto mainland Europe, and with his army, and then the army jumped off the shore, and then they burnt the boats, and the lieutenants are saying, "What are you doing, General? You've burnt all the boats." And he goes, "Well, we've got no retreat. We have to win." So if you're going with that mindset that there's no return, there's no turning back, that there's only way forward, you have to just keep going forward. And if you go with that sort of mindset, then all the doubt that sort of normally clouds your mind can just disappear, and you can just focus on what the problem is and what the solution is. Because most people spend all their time thinking about a problem when actually all they really should be focusing on is a solution, and start trying to work out, how to complete their goal. So I went over to Australia and I said, look, I'm not leaving until I have a freehold house or freehold houses in New Zealand, because I want to take cash flow from these properties and travel around the world. I don't want to travel around the world like as a pauper. I want to at least have an income coming in. So that's what I did. I worked hard, set up a construction company, sold it, bought some houses in New Zealand, and back $20,000 back then in 1993 was like 100 grand today. So it was a lot of money for a 23-year-old to have 100 grand a year. And I just traveled around the world with that. So that was the beginning of it all, obviously. By 2010, I had a family, 2 beautiful kids, a big waterfront house. And then the GFC happened, and I had put a lot of money into film, and I lost everything I owned. I went back to zero. So 2010, I went bankrupt, and I was like, well, how am I going to get out of this hole? I'm in a real deep hole here. So I went down to the Barfoot and Thompson mortgagee auctions and started buying houses just as they came up. And of course, I didn't have a deposit, so I put my hand up, buy them, and then the agents say, well, you need to pay a deposit. And I say, I'll pay you later. And of course, they wouldn't want to let me out of the building, so I would convince them to let me out of the building, as I'd run around town looking for someone to find the deposit to pay them, that I could do a trade. Because if you've got no money, you must know someone that does. Or if you don't know someone, which I didn't know someone, I just called up people. I remember when I first started in property trading in 2001, and in 2001 I didn't have 1 cent to my name really. I'd travel around the world and spend all my money, and did a big land development in Indonesia and lost it. And then so 2001 I had nothing. I came up to Auckland on the dole, and I thought, well, I really want to buy and sell properties. I don't have any money. So I got the Property Investor magazine out and rang up about 20 people that had advertised in that magazine, from accountants to lawyers to people that were featured. And I just said, look, I want to be a property trader, and this is what I'm going to do, and would you invest with me? And I got one guy I met who was an accountant, said, oh, I got $6 million to spend. And so me and him started buying houses flat tack. And by the time 2007 had happened, by 2007 I owned 10 houses in Auckland. So I'd done very well. The fact that I lost them in the next 3 years was a bit sad, but equally, it's 2010 I was back to bankrupt. I had no money, but I knew people that did, and I couldn't. None of these guys I used to use did have money, so I just went and knocked on doors and found someone that would actually, pay a deposit on this mortgagee, these 2 mortgagee houses I bought one day. I mean, when I went in to buy those mortgagee houses, I didn't even have enough petrol money, and I certainly didn't have the parking money to pay. So I just took a bus, and these 2 houses came up. Well, I know the streets, I knew the area well, I knew everything, so I bought those houses, and then we bought those. I bought those 2, found a guy to pay the deposit and settle them, And then we sold them for about 60 grand more than we paid. So I had 30 grand now. Suddenly I was bankrupt with 30 grand. So 30 grand, I put a deposit under the house and bought and sold that. And then I just sort of started the process again, you know, from zero. You got to start from the ground up sometimes. So yeah, it was a painful experience to go and lose everything and stuff like this. But it didn't take long before I was back to having a waterfront house and, you know, just back to, you know, back to normal, business as normal, you know. You know, these things are set to test you. And if you've got the skills, see, people not realizing, like, if you're working at a checkout, you know, you can, even if you're working at the checkout, say, for example, you know, you can learn a whole lot of skills there about accounting and money and stuff like that, that you could use in other parts of your life, you know, just whatever your job is, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, just be the best you can be at it, you know. So I was the best property trader I could be, and my skills that I learnt there were able to transfer into the new economy, which was after 2010, after the GFC sort of, and I was able to rebuild. So I did that, rebuilt, and then 2016 I sold my, I went back to property trading, sold my company, and went into film. And so 2016 I started in film, and we did a film called Soldiers Without Guns, and a couple of other big international features, which have, one's done very well in terms of its financial returns. The other one is stalled because we can't do a cinema release at the moment. And the other one, Soldiers Without Guns, which is about it's very much set in the Pacific, set up in Papua New Guinea. There's a big war going on and no one knows how to stop the war. It's a documentary. And after 14 failed peace agreements during this civil war over a 10-year period, New Zealand jumps in and says, we're going to go over with guitars instead of guns. So everyone was like, wow, and I was a journalist back then. I went and studied journalism. And everyone thought, oh, this is going to be crazy. But turns out this became the most successful peacekeeping mission in modern history. So I'll put a link, if you want to send a link, people can buy the film and stuff like this, or watch the trailer or something like this. But yeah, it's a very, very good film. Have you seen the film, Alex? Did you get to watch it last night?
I did, and I watched the whole thing. Well, I must say, you did an amazing job with your team there. I was drawn to the whole film the whole time, and I didn't want to leave it till today to finish it off. I wanted to see the whole thing right to the end. And yeah, it was, it grabbed my attention. And it's the least that I can say about that. It was done really well. And yeah, for people who are listening and watching as well, yeah, these are our people. These are the people behind the thinking of Arbez. It's Will who introduced me to a whole lot of things. One of the things, very simple, Will, is when I came to your house, we went to a hammock and we were there doing conversations. And the first time that I hopped into a hammock, and we were having conversations there. And at the same time, we were teasing our brains, and then with your spa and everything, looking out to the ocean and stuff. You've introduced me into a world that I really enjoyed, and those are the things that I valued with the friendship with you. One of the very memorable ones as well is there was a year you did a Christmas function for all your clients, and you hired a yacht, and we went out to the harbour and spent the whole night there, and that was just amazing, you know, introduction to a life that I never thought would be possible, but you actually took me there. So, you know, there is always room for you in my heart and my life as well. Well, another thing as well with all of that, I see that you were a winner of the Property Professional of the Year 2014 and 2015. So this is after you went bankrupt in 2010, and then you bounced back. The mindset seems to be the thing that's the stronghold, and that actually moves you forward with everything that you do. You've talked about burning bridges, and don't worry, once you've made a decision, just focus on you know, the positive and forget about the negative and stuff. Will enlighten us more.
So well, certainly I did win that award, and that was, I was very grateful to win that award. But the other thing about that is that in 2010, I remember, you know, what happened was that I invested a lot of money in a film, and I owed quite a bit of money. I had revolving credits with the bank. Well, the banks withdrew those, and so I had no cash flow. coming in because I was working on the film and there wasn't any cash flow. So basically they sold one and there wasn't enough money to pay the mortgage. So then they sold another, and it just like dominoed down. And so I ended up back to ground zero again. But I remember just lying in my bed crying one day going, oh my God, you know, I felt like it was the end of the world. I don't know why. Probably I felt a lot of pressure when I was going under, because I had 2 kids this time, like, and a wife. Like before, when I went under, and you know, I've had probably 3 big ups and downs in my life. You know, I had made a lot of money in construction, lost it in a big property deal in Indonesia, made a lot of money in property, lost it all in film, and several things. But you know, I was really in a bad mindset. I was really in a depressed place because I felt the pressure of having a family. But I called up a guy called Don Ha, who's an immigrant guy from Vietnam, and he's a very good self-promoter and marketer. And I said, look, I'm really having problems. Can I talk to you? And he said, sure, come down and see me. And so I went and saw him. He says, what are your problems? So I laid out all my problems. He says, well, you can solve it by doing this. You can solve that by doing this. You can solve that. So rather than actually just in this massive quagmire of all my problems, he just said, okay, here's your problem. Write down all your problems. So I wrote down the problems, and then we had a solution for each one, which I then went about and followed. And the moment you actually start breaking away from your sort of, you know, thoughts of dire consequences and take action in a positive way, you can break free. So he listed all these things down, and I then sort of proceeded to follow all those things. And that was what I suppose saved me from myself, basically. So I was able to solve whatever the problems that were, and then just go back to trading. And although I didn't have any money, I just knew that, hey, you didn't really need any money. You know, you could always use other people's money. And
OPM.
Yeah, OPM, absolutely. OPM, other people's money. And people go, oh, how can you get people's money? Well, I mean, people don't even know me from a bar of soap, and I would show up in front of them. You know, I had no trading experience when I first started. So this time, at least I had a little bit of experience. So I could say to people, hey, I've done this and I've done that. So, but yeah, it was a major depressing time for me in 2010. But by 2015, I was back on top again. You know, I'd rebuilt a lot of my empire. I think I had like 5 or 6 houses in Auckland again. I was on a bit of a roll, and so I carried on doing that. But by 2016, I realised that the market's pretty much poked here. I mean, it's like and sold out in 16, and got into my passion, which is film. And you know, I started a film 13 years ago called Soldiers Without Guns, which you've mentioned, and everybody told me to quit. Everybody told me I shouldn't do it. Everyone says, no one will be interested in it. It's not even worth doing. Da, da, da. And this went on for a decade. And then I just thought, you know what? These guys, you know, may be right, but I'm going to do what I feel I have to do. And I don't want to leave this project unfinished. You know, I feel like if I left this unfinished, then what next would I leave unfinished? You know, am I going to leave? Is this going to be the beginning of me quitting on all the things that I ever dreamed, or all the things I ever wanted? And you know, my parents told me I shouldn't really do it, and then my colleagues and people with more experience in film told me I shouldn't do it, and I just said I have to just complete this. And even if I complete it and it's a flop or it's a disaster, I will know personally that I have completed the task. That, you know, I've been through the Middle East. I spent a lot of time in the Middle East. I lived in Israel for a long time. I lived on the Sea of Galilee for a long time, working up there, and living up on the Sea of Galilee. And, you know, I just knew that it was, you know, that it was time to complete the project. And when I was in Israel, I just saw the conflicts and the war, and I saw New Zealand as one of the truly like integrated. It's one of the most integrated culturally integrated countries in the world. So, you know, people go, oh, there's a conflict between the, you know, Pākehā and the Palangis and the Islanders and the Māori, and there's this and there's this great divide. It's the smallest divide of all countries I know of. You know, sure, there is, you know, we're not all perfectly in harmony. I'm not saying we ever were, but I'm just saying that we are as culturally close to one another as any country I've seen on the planet. And I have traveled more places than anyone I've ever met. I'm a real traveler. Every year I'll do 3 or 4 trips a year. I was on the road non-stop for 5 years. My old passport, which used to have 90 pages of pages in it, I stamped it all out. So there was not one. I got to a border one time. I went to the Friendship Bridge from Thailand to Laos, get to the Friendship Bridge, and they go, "We cannot stamp your passport." And I was like, "What have I done? What did I do? I've done nothing wrong." They go, "You show me one place on this whole 90 pages where I can put a stamp."
Wow.
It's absolutely cool. So we're very, very integrated. We're culturally aware, and we're very close to our Pacific neighbours. And I saw the Bougainville when I was a journalist. I saw the Bougainville Civil War, and I saw the Bougainville Civil War first in Australia. I used to walk the streets of Australia, and there was no reporting of the Bougainville Civil War, which was the largest civil war in the Pacific's history. There was no reporting of it unless you're on the street like me, walking around trying to find a job. So I knew about the Civil War. And then when I was a reporter, New Zealand went to Bougainville, so I followed that story. So, and then for some reason, it's a bit like Frodo got given the ring, and he had to complete the task of, dropping the ring into the fires of Mordor. Well, I was given the job to tell those people's story, and there was 20,000 dead, and there's a saying that tales, stories the dead want told, So I was just given the task of telling that story, and that story, as I say, is now, it's got 9.4 out of 10 on IMDb, which makes it the highest rated New Zealand film of all time. But mind you, there's only 500 New Zealand films on IMDb. There's over 500 that aren't. So, but also it's a very emotional story. So people watch it, I always tell them to get as many tissues as they can, because for the first time you'll know firsthand what it's like to be a black woman in a civil war. Because normally it's like this famous big white guy, and history is pretty much these. Modern history is written by very wealthy, powerful white guys too, and so you don't get the powerful, wealthy white guy story. You get what it's like to be a black Bougainvillean woman in Bougainville during the Civil War, and it's terrible, absolutely terrible. But you get a sense of it, and these women are very powerful emotionally. So it's a very, very powerful, emotional, engaging, gripping story, and that's what's created, such a high rating, and why I've won, 11 international best documentary awards and highest, it's big, but I could have stopped that 12 years in, 12 years and 6 months in, I could have just stopped, you see. And so it's only that last, sometimes the finish line's only that extra step, but that extra step is the difference between victory and loss. Sometimes you'll be going, I'm at home some nights, I go, I've really got to finish this job, but just watch, Netflix. There's something on Netflix and stuff like this, and do it. Sometimes you just got to go, look, I'm going to put my Netflix down. I'm going to take that extra step. I'm going to go that extra step. I'm going to cut through this and make it all happen. And so sometimes you have to do the extra step. So that documentary, although it took 13 years, in my part time, and the weekend I'd chip away at it, and the weekends I'd chip it away at it, and holidays I'd write the story. I'd write more of the documentary. Because I wrote, produced, and directed over 13 years. So effectively, what you're doing, or what you're doing on your project or your hobby or something like this, is that you chip away at these things. I mean, David, when Michelangelo made David, he chipped away at that block for about 18 months, and so you just chip away at it, and eventually you get the people sort of think, hey, they get this idea, I'm going to be a millionaire in 2 years. Well, actually, it might take you 20, it might take you 5, but you've just got to do the distance. People overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year. They always go, shit, in 1 year I can do this, but they underestimate what you can do in 10 years. So in 10 years, you can do a truckload, but in 1 year, sometimes you don't. So people really, it's just very short term, and also it's just modern age, like every business is looking what they made this last quarter, and it's all now, me, fast. But sometimes it does take 10 years to finish a project, so from when I went under in 2010, it took me sort of 6.5 years to get back to where I was, so it wasn't like an overnight success. And people think, oh wow, look what he's achieved. Well, I achieved that from a wheelbarrow boy. I was given no chance of, I went to Australia because why are you going to Australia? There's no work here, but you could just be on the dole here. You could be on the dole in New Zealand. You don't need to work, so why would you bother? But yes, there's a lot of opportunity in this world. There's endless opportunity. things just take a bit more time than people estimate. And if you want to achieve something great, it might just take you a long time. And people, when they tell you that you can't do it, it's because they love you and they want you safe. They don't do it because they want to hurt you. But people say, oh, don't do that, because they're saying it because they want you to be safe and they want you to be secure. They're not doing it because they're trying to rain on your parade.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole thing comes back to that trusting other people as well, and be very careful as to who you listen to for the advice that you get. And Will, just thinking, looking at you and just how you're sharing your story, and so much is being released for all the people who are listening and stuff. And I'm sure a lot of people would love to follow and understand who this guy Will is. I mean, you are Kiwi, you are in New Zealand. Where are you right now? Is that your oasis at the back there? I can hear the birds.
Yeah, this is I'm in Point Chev, so it's a point just away from, you can actually see the Sky Tower. It's that way about 5k, so it's very close to the city. And
Wow.
and I've got a beach just down the road, so I'm very lucky here. I really like it here, so I've been living here for a while. But yeah, so I've got a nice swimming pool here, and we've got the beach just down the road, so I can't complain. Basically, it's very, very lovely little spot. And I moved here a few years ago, and yeah, I just love it in Point Chev. Really, I'm quite lucky, very lucky to have this too. And I mean, you've got to be just grateful for every day you're above ground. Like people like, I want more and more of this, and people sort of forget, just to be grateful for what small
Yes.
mercy you are on, especially if you've been through a lot of downs, then when you're up, you can sort of be really grateful, and I think that's, a lot of people don't want to take the chance because they might go down or they might collapse in a heap or some of this, but that's the best thing that can happen for you, to collapse in a heap, because when you come out of that collapse in a heap, when you hit rock bottom and there's only one way up, you sort of look back and you go, wow, I learned a lot, and two, now I'm a lot more grateful for what few things I have. So if I lost everything tomorrow, I'd just have to, as long as I've got a telephone, I could just go around town and call up people and say, and I've got relationships with people too that are very long lasting now, and I would just call them and they know who I am and they're happy to give me a chance. Before, when I first started, it was like, who are you? What have you done? And so now it's, things are a lot, it's just, they're not necessarily any easier. They are just, I've already got the established relationships now to do whatever I want. And that's what you're doing in your life, is you're building up relationships and connections. And, if I can call up a banker and say, look, I need this money for that, they'll go, yeah, okay, well, we know what your history's like, we know that you're a good person, So luckily, I've got a very good reputation. And what are you worth? Well, if you might be bankrupt in the bank's eyes, but if everyone else around you says you've got a good reputation and are happy to invest with you or some of this, you're a rich person. You've still got your relationships, you've still got your friendships. You might not have any money in the bank, but you've got the knowledge here. No one can take that away, and no one can take away the fact that you've got a good relationship and good networks and stuff like that. And I encourage people to build up their networks. And much like you and I, connected, I thought you'd be very positive in my life, and I think vice versa too. So we connected not to share our common problems, but to share our common goals. And it's really for people to actually engage with people that are striving, going forward, and you might say edified, even more knowledgeable in a subject than them, or more experienced or stuff, to reach out to those people, because those people that are up there, slightly more knowledgeable about property or film or something, always, that I've experienced, they're always busy, so don't get me wrong, but they'll always have some time to talk with you and say, well, look, I'll guide you. Here's a little tip to guide you, So people always, those people, that might seem more edified than you, more skilled at something, are always open to have a conversation and share with you and give you a bit of guidance. I haven't met anyone that hasn't been able to, but sometimes it might take me 2 weeks to even have a conversation with them, and you've just got to accept that, hey, they're busy, and they can't just put down everything and run to you, And so I've had conversations with people in film that took 6 months to happen, A lot of people don't even want to meet me. That's fine. And I just say, well, look, I remember when I first started the film, I called Roger Mortlock, the main protagonist, the guy that led the New Zealand coalition of 4 armies to Bougainville with guitars. And I rang him up and says, Roger Mortlock, it's William Watson. I'd love to do a documentary on soldiers. I'm going to call it Soldiers Without Guns. I'd love you to be involved. He says, no, I'm not interested. And he says, and also, where are you from? I says, Auckland. He says, I hate Jeffers. And he says, also, what do you do? I says, a journalist. He goes, I hate journalists too. And he hung up. So this is my main guy for the film, hung up on me, told me he hated me, just like that. Do you think that even slightly fazed me? You think I would even stop? That was like, great. For me, it was like, I was like, awesome, mate. We got one on the line, you know. This is fantastic, mate. General Mortlock, he is really, really anti me, And it was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to, buddy. Can't wait to keep this conversation alive, you know, like, yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, I love it. I love it when people act like that. It's great. It's just a challenge, you know. If it was all easy, then, you know, wow. If every part of life was easy, then it'd be boring as shit. You want people to tell you no and piss off, and you know, and it just builds you up. You know, it's exciting. You don't want it all easy. You know? It's part of the fun of it. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And Will, just listening to you, and you know, it's just so much. And I'm sure the same thing is happening to a whole lot of people who are listening. I mean, that story is very empowering as you're sharing. One of the things that I've noticed is, I think I'm going to try and wrap it up. I'm mindful of your time, and for our listeners as well. You know, you've gone as far as winning international awards, speaking in the Beehive, all of these achievements in life. There's never been a moment in our conversation that I've heard you talk about university and having a degree that actually gave you the courage to ask and speak when you needed to. Did you?
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, I'd like to say that I think degrees are very worthwhile. And I know you're a chartered accountant, and I'm actually amazed like how well you've, you know, gone in your life with, one, becoming an accountant, and two, that you've gone on to be a financial advisor, and how few Pacific Island people have done that, and how you've really taken the bull by the horns and made that all happen. And that's amazing work, you know, and you've really like broken a whole lot of glass ceilings and gone out there and made it happen. So congratulations to you. And you talk about adversity. I mean, I could only imagine you're from a small island in the Pacific, you're suddenly stuck in Australia, you've got very few friends, you've had to make it, you know. So that was amazing, you know, that you've come so far and you've done so much work in your community. And I think degrees are really, really powerful. And it's horses for courses. And my course was never going to be doing a degree. I mean, I'm very, very badly dyslexic, so I could never read at school. And one of my earliest memories at school was being pulled into the headmaster's office, and he says, "Why aren't you reading?" And I says, "Oh, I don't know why I'm not reading. I just thought everyone could read, you know." I said, "I don't know why I can't read." And he says, "You know, you can read this." And I just couldn't read anything. It just was all a jumbled mess. I couldn't see anything. And so he just had a long strap and a cane, and he used to hit me with his belt and his ruler or whatever to try, and that was his method to teach me back then. And you know, if you couldn't learn something, they just used to hit you and so from school onward, I became a very belligerent. I refused to do anything pretty much. I was a very annoying little student, but I just couldn't read a page, you know. And you know, it took me years and years before I could read and spell, and I'm still very, very bad at it. But once the computers came out that could do words check and spell check, and it made life a hell of an easy for me, you know, hell of an easy. But it's not so much how good you are at writing, it's how good your mind functions and how good you are socially. So, you know, I would encourage my girls to get a degree, but the number one degree that you need is, one, the right mindset, and you get that a thing grow rich. Two, the ability to socialize with other people, and you can learn all of that in Winning Friends and Influence and Dale Carnegie, and all you need to know about money and stuff like that's in the Robert Kiyosaki book. So yeah, horses for courses. I wasn't interested in getting a degree. No one has ever asked me, do you have a degree? Will, do you have a degree? But yeah, so it hasn't been useful for me, but I think it's really useful for a lot of people. And yeah, it just would never serve me, but for some, it's just the best leverage. And the other thing that I would have loved to have gone to university for is a lot of my mates went and they made great friends, you know, so I'm friends with their friends, but it would have been cool to go to uni and meet some really cool, like-minded people. So that's the only thing I've really missed out on, is really just meeting some really cool people. That's the only thing I missed out about university. You know, I
Wow.
love school. Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. And so for anyone who's listening out there and think that you've missed out on that, you've just heard Will shared his perspective and his mindset going into everything here and everything that he's achieved. Well, for everyone, this has come to the end of our discussion with Will.
Yeah.
And you will meet him as well, because he is part of who we are as Arbez. And we will probably have sometime when we get him to speak at some of our events when everything has died down, and my friend Will to actually share more in live his story, and I'm sure there is a lot more in there that you are probably so willing to share with everyone else. So Will, allow me to take this time to thank you for making the time to be with us this morning. I am sure our listeners and our viewers have gotten so much value out of the discussions that we've had, and hope a lot of them have been inspired by your story and what you've shared with them. And with that, I say thank you. And to all our viewers as well, down below you'll see our link to Arbez. Register your interest if you are interested to learn more about Arbez and its partners and what we bring to the table for you. But for right now, have a great day, everyone, and we will see you again.